Hello and welcome to the Target UPSC Prelims 2025 Current Affairs Revision Series, and this is the third episode of Economy. And if you haven't watched the first and the second episode, then you need to go to the playlist section and watch the first and the second episode first. And with regard to economy, apart from the economy, we have other subjects also that we have covered, and that is like polity, art and culture, economy, environment, science and tech. So you can go and check out those episodes also. So let's begin with the third episode of economy, and the first topic that we have covered is that the Lok Sabha passes finance bill amends LTCG tax provisions on immovable properties. So it is that the Lok Sabha has approved the finance bill 2024, and this amends the long term capital gain tax provisions. LTCG stands for the long term capital gain tax, and this amendment offers taxpayers an option. Now what is this option? So according to the amendment, taxpayers can choose to pay the lesser of the two amounts. So there are two different scenarios, and out of these two different scenarios, in whichever scenario the amount comes lesser, the taxpayer can choose that scenario. So the two scenarios are, first is, under the old system, 20% long-term capital gain tax with indexation benefits would be applicable on the sale of assets required before 23rd July 2024. So 20% LTCG with indexation benefits. Now indexation benefit means that under the indexation benefits, the inflation would be involved, and also the amount with regard to the purchase of the asset or the property would be involved under it. Then the second scenario, that is under the new system, 12.5% of capital gains, long-term capital gain tax will be applicable, but this would be without indexation. Earlier one, indexation was involved, but it was 20%, and now without indexation it is 12.5%. So the person can calculate the amount in both these scenarios, and whichever the amount comes lesser, the taxpayer can go for that option. Now what is a capital gains tax? Now capital gain tax refers to profits earned from assets which are held for more than 12 months for listed assets and more than 24 months for unlisted assets. So listed assets, it is more than 12 months, and unlisted assets, it is more than 24 months. Any profit or gain arising from the sale of a capital asset is a capital gain tax. Now for example, imagine that someone has a property, and someone's property is of rupees 10 lakh, and then someone has sold it property and someone has bought that for 15 lakh. Now the person who has sold it for 15 lakh rupees has got 5 lakh, so the capital gain tax will be applied on this amount of rupees 5 lakh, because this is the amount which is the difference between the person who has bought it and then who has sold it. So the capital gain tax will be applied on this amount of 5 lakh, and only for the particular year. Like for example, if the sale has been done in the financial year 2024-25, then only for that particular year the capital gains tax will be applied. Now this profit or gain comes under the category of income. Therefore, capital gains tax will have to be paid on that amount in the year in which the transfer of the capital asset takes place. So the year in which the transfer of the capital asset has taken place, and that particular year only the capital gain tax will be involved. This is called capital gains tax, which can be both short term or long term. Now what is a long term capital gains tax and what is the short term capital gains tax? So the long term capital gain tax is a tax levied on profits from the sale of assets held for more than a year, and be very clear with regard to the tax is applied only on the profit, not on the amount. Like for example, the example that I just gave you, that the person bought it for 10 lakh, then sold it for 15 lakh. So the capital gain tax will be applied only for that 5 lakh rupees, not on the complete 15 lakh rupees. Then the rates are 0%, 15% or 20% depending on the tax bracket. Then comes the short-term capital gains tax. This applies to assets which are held for a year or less and is taxed as ordinary income. So short term is less than a year, long term is more than a year. Now the next news is that FPIs domiciled at GIFT City allowed to issue P-note to investors. So what is P-note? P-note stands for participatory note, and this full form of P-note has already been asked in the UPSC examination in the prelims. You can go and check out the PYQs. Only the full form was asked, and because under the examination hall the people are the students or the aspirants are so much under pressure that they even get these questions wrong. So you need to be clear with regard to things that can be asked in the examination. So recently the foreign portfolio investors which are resident in the GIFT International Financial Services Center, it is situated in Gujarat, and registered with the SEBI, they have been permitted to issue participatory notes. So basically the FPI who are residents of the GIFT city, they can issue participatory notes. Now what is P notes or participatory notes? So basically these are financial instruments are used by investors and hedge funds to invest in Indian stocks which do not require registration with SEBI. Now what happens is, outside India there are people who wants to use their wealth, so there are rich individuals who want to spend into some other country, but they do not want to be registered with the regulator of that country. Now how are they going to invest in that country? So they can invest through the P notes. So there are FPIs or the FIIs who have the P notes, and the other people who can use their huge wealth and have hedge funds, they can invest in the Indian stock market through P notes, and through P notes their identity also does not get revealed, and they do not have to register with the Indian stock market regulator, and they can invest in the Indian stock market also. There are negatives also with regards to the P notes, because a large amount of money comes into the P notes and a lot of volatility in the stock market can also be observed with regards to it. And this can also called the soft money, like the money can come in one day and can go back in third to fourth day also, and this also creates a lot of up and down in the stock market, and that is how it is called hot money also. So a hedge fund is a type of investment fund that uses various investment strategies for higher risk and higher return. So the basic funda or the basic idea of the people who want to use promissory note but do not want to be get registered is that they invest big amount to get good returns. So high risk, high returns is what their expectations are. Now investments coming through P notes are called offshore derivative investments because they are coming from outside the country. These are provided by registered foreign portfolio investors to overseas investors who wish to invest in the Indian stock market without registering directly. So the hedge funds which are being invested through the FPIs or the FIIs, they are not registered with the regulator SEBI, but the people or the FPI or the FIIs through whom they are investing into the Indian stock market, those FPI and FIIs are registered with SEBI. FIIs are required to report investments to SEBI every quarter, but they are not required to disclose the identity of investors. So through P notes, the identity gets hidden. FIIs stands for the foreign institutional investors. They are foreign institutions that invest in the capital market in India, and these investors mainly invest in the Indian stock market to get good returns. Now comes the other news, and this other news is that the cabinet has accorded approval for progressive expansion of central sector scheme of the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. So recently the Union Cabinet has approved the progressive expansion of the central sector scheme of financing facility under the Agriculture Investment or Infrastructure Fund to make it more attractive, effective and inclusive. As it is a central sector scheme, it is a core scheme, so the help or the investment is coming from the central government. Now, with regard to what is Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. So, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund is a financing facility that was launched in the year 2020, and it aims to provide financial assistance to farmers, agri entrepreneurs, farmer groups like farmer producer organizations, self-help groups, joint liability groups and others to create a post-harvest management infrastructure and community farming assets across the country. So basically, it gives loans to the farmers so that farmers can use that money for a better harvest. Then it provides support in the form of 3% interest subsidy, credit guarantee for loans up to rupees 2 crore through the Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for micro, small and medium enterprises. Then this fund will be managed and monitored through an online management information system platform. So a platform will also be created for the management of the fund. So basically this will be with regards to giving help, financial help to the farmers. Now coming on to the next topic, and that is the Ministry of Textiles has approved startups in technical textiles to boost innovation. Now what is technical textile? When we talk about technical textiles, so that is that does not have anything to do with the aesthetic value of the textiles. So it is basically regarded or is associated with the textiles in use or the textiles in market or the textiles on job. Like for example, the textiles which is used in some way or the other and that can be sold. So recently the Empowered Program Committee of the National Technical Textile Mission has approved 7 startup professionals under the grant for research and entrepreneurship across aspiring innovators in technical textile initiatives. Now about the great initiative, what is it? What is this great initiative? So it was launched in the year 2023. And the aim was to develop a startup ecosystem in technical textiles in India, because it has been seen and it has been observed that the textile industry holds a very large potential, and this potential needs to be nurtured so that people in the textile industry can get more and more jobs. Ministry of Textiles is the nodal ministry with regard to the great initiative. And the aim is to encourage young innovators, scientists, technologists and startup ventures in the field of technical textiles to convert their ideas into commercial technologies, products and make India self-reliant and produce or create more and more jobs. In this, the grant assistance of up to rupees 50 lakh will be provided for a period of 18 months. So 50 lakh grant and the time period is for 18 months. Now what is technical textiles? Now what is technical textile? Then the main purpose of manufacturing technical textile is functionality. Functionality means it needs to be in function. It has nothing to do with the aesthetic value of the textile. It needs to be in function. Like for example, when we talk about sportswear, then the costumes that the sportsman uses, so that comes under the functionality. Then in army, the bulletproof vest which the soldiers use, that comes under the functionality aspect of the textile. Then technical textiles are widely used in the fields of agriculture, scientific research, medicine, military, personal protection, industry and sports. Now if you talk about technical textiles, these products drive their demand from development and industrialization in a country. There are 12 technical textile sectors which are based on applications. They are agrotech, meditech, build tech, mobile tech, cloth tech, oic tech and many others. So in total there are 12 technical textile sectors. Now what is National Technical Textile Mission? It was approved by the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs and the year was 2020 with a total outlay of rupees 1480 crore. And the implementation period is for 4 years from 2020-21 to 2023-24. And the aim is to establish India as a global leader in the technical textiles by increasing the domestic market size from $40 billion to $50 billion by the year 2024. Components of National technical textile mission, that is research, innovation and development, so that new aspects can be come out and can be worked on it, so that the future and the sustainability of the sector can be maintained. Then promotion and market development, so that it can reach to more and more people. Then export promotion, the manufacturing must improve so that more and more export can be done. Then education, training and skill development, more and more jobs can be created in the industry and more people can be employed and can show their talent or skills in the respective sector. Coming on to the next topic, and that is NFRA releases the first part of Auditor Audit Committee Interaction Series, and the title of the series is Audit of Accounting Estimates and Judgments. So recently NFRA, now what is NFRA? So that is National Financial Reporting Authority. So recently NFRA has released the first part of the Auditor Audit Committee Interaction Series, and it is issued under the title, so the title of the series is Auditing of Accounting Estimates and Judgments. Now about NFRA, that is the National Financial Reporting Authority. So what it is? So it was constituted by the Government of India in the year 2018 under the section 132 of the Companies Act, and it is an accounting auditing regulatory body. So it is basically a regulatory body who keeps a vigil and regulation over the auditing and the accounting things which goes on. It has a chairman, and the expertise of the chairman lies in accounting, accountancy, finance or law, and is appointed by the central government. Then similarly other members are also included whose number should not exceed 15. So the total number of members should not exceed 15. Now what are the functions and duties of NFRA? So that is to recommend accounting and auditing policies and standards to be followed by companies for approval by the central government. So the company, the standards, minimum standards or the bare minimum standards that they need to follow with regards to the auditing and accounting. Then enforcing accounting standards and auditing standards and monitoring compliance therewith. Then supervising the quality of service of businesses, ensuring compliance and protecting the public interest. So basically looking at that whether the auditing is being done with regard to following the bare minimum standards or not. Then its accounts are monitored by the Comptroller and Auditor General, that is the CAG, and headquarters is in New Delhi. So nowadays we see that the headquarters is also being asked in the examination. Next is Union Government names Revenue Secretary Sanjay Malhotra as the RBI Governor. So the central government has appointed the 26th RBI Governor, and the name of the RBI Governor as of now is Sanjay Malhotra. Remember the number also, that is the 26th RBI Governor. So about the RBI Governor, it is appointed by the central government under the RBI Act of 1934. The final appointment is made by the Appointments Committee of Cabinet, and the Appointments Committee of Cabinet is headed by the Prime Minister of India. Then he may hold office for a term not exceeding 5 years. So maximum is 5 years, or such term as the central government may determine at the time of appointment, and the reappointment is there. So eligibility for reappointment is there for the RBI Governor. Now with regard to what is RBI, so RBI is the central bank or the apex bank of India, and it was established on 1st April 1935 according to the provisions of the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. So the central office of the Reserve Bank was initially established in Kolkata. So central office was initially, when it was formed, was in Kolkata, but then it shifted to Mumbai permanently in the year 1937. And the central office is the office where the RBI Governor sits and where policies are formulated and signed. Initially privately owned, since the nationalization process has been done in the year 1949, now RBI comes fully, and it is fully owned by the Government of India. Now next topic, and that is the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey for the year 2023-24. So recently the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation has released the fact sheet for Household Consumption Expenditure Survey for the year 2023-24. It talks about or it provides important information about consumption patterns and economic well-being in India, how the consumption patterns with regard to retail and wholesale has taken place. Household Consumption Expenditure Survey, so it collects data on household spending patterns to assess living standards, well-being and consumption behavior. So household spending, it means retail. Then it is conducted by the National Statistical Office since the year 1951 and is part of the National Sample Survey under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Importance is that it provides inputs for calculating the consumer price index and revising the base year for macroeconomic indicators such as gross domestic product. So basically is about calculating the CPI, that is the consumer price index, and also revising the base year. Key findings of the survey is that average monthly per capita expenditure for rural and urban, for rural it was around rupees 4,122, while for urban it was around rupees 6,996. Now if we talk about the consumption inequality, then the Gini coefficient. So Gini coefficient talks about the inequality and the equality. So if it's 0, then it is perfectly equal, and 1 talks about perfectly unequal. So Gini coefficient declined to 0.2 and for rural and 0.284 for urban. So it means that there is reduction in income inequality. Next topic comes, that is the CCI approves Google's 20.24 crore settlements in Android TV antitrust case. So what has happened is that the Competition Commission of India has approved Google's settlement proposal in the Android TV case under section 48A3 of the Competition Act of 2002. Background of the case is that the case under section 19(1)(a) of the Competition Act 2002 alleged that Google has abused its dominant position in the Android TV market by bundling the Play Store with its Android TV OS and restricting alternative Android versions. It means that they are using its dominant position for its advantage and undermining the other companies. CCI found that Google dominates the smart TV OS and App Store market in India and is using the unfair practices to lower down its competition. Now about the Competition Commission of India. So it is a statutory body of the Government of India responsible for enforcing the Competition Act of 2002 and formally constituted in the year 2009. On the recommendations of the Raghavan Committee. The Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act of 1969, that is the MRTP Act, it was repealed and replaced by the Competition Act of 2002. Then the commission shall consist of a chairperson and 6 members to be appointed by the central government. The commission is a quasi-judicial body that renders opinion to statutory authorities and also deals with other matters. So quasi-judicial body, it also has the power of punishment. Now functions and role of CCI. So that is, it eliminates practices having adverse effect on competition. So it puts an eye on whether fair practices are being done and fair competition is being followed by the big companies or not. To protect the interest of consumers and ensure freedom of trade in the markets of India, so that it should not be that any company is misusing or is misguiding the consumers. Providing opinion on competition issues on a reference received from any statutory authority. Undertaking competition advocacy, creating public awareness and providing training on competition issues. So it basically looks after all the aspects of it. Now next topic is computerization and strengthening of primary cooperative societies. So PACS, that is the Primary Agricultural Cooperative Societies. So what has happened is that the Government of India has implemented the project for strengthening the PACS and for computerization of the functional PACS. Now what is PACS? So they are grassroots level. They are grassroots level cooperative credit institutions and they provide the short and the medium term agricultural loans to farmers for various agricultural and farming activities. So they are cooperative societies, provide loan to small and medium farmers, and what is the main aim? For various agricultural and farming activities. It works at the grassroots level, at the Gram Panchayat and village level. So the first primary agricultural credit society was formed in the year 1904 to help the farmers at the grassroots level. And they are operating on the basis of cooperative banking system and are the main retail outlets of short term and medium term loans to the rural areas. Now, importance of PACs. Why is it important? So they provide various services like banking, on-site supply, marketing products and trading of consumer goods. And the farmers, small farmers can easily get loans under it. So they play a very important role with regards to the grassroots level and the farmers of the medium and the small farmers to provide financial help to them, and they also work with regard to the inclusion of farmers. They act as mini banks to provide finance and also provide warehousing services to the farmers. So these were about today's topics, and in the end the prelims MCQ, and like always you people need to tell me the answer in the comments below. So the question is, which of the following statements about primary agricultural cooperative societies is correct? PACs operate under the direct control of the Reserve Bank of India. PACs provide long-term finance for industrial development. Third, PACs act as the first point of contact for rural credit in India. Or fourth, PACs are regulated by the Ministry of Finance, Government of India. We have discussed this in the video, so give me the answer in the comments below. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Till we meet next time, keep reading, keep writing and keep subscribing to the channel. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.